Hello everyone, I'm Janine Rosche, and for this episode of Love Wonder Read Wednesday, I thought I would do something different. As some of you know, my third book in the Madison River Romance series comes out on Tuesday, January 12th, and it is called Glory Falls. It is Thomas's story. So you got to see glimpses of Thomas in both This Wandering Heart and Wildflower Road. But this story is going to dive into what made Thomas who he is and the experience that he has when he reunites with his lifetime crush, Cecilia Blue Walker. So I'm gonna read from the prologue. I was debating the prologue or chapter 1. I personally love the prologue because it really shows their relationship. However, they're 11, and I do not want anyone to think that this is a love story between two 11-year-olds. That was done in that really creepy, like 1970s movie, A Little Romance with Diane Lane, and that movie scarred me. We will not be recreating that in Glory Falls. So in just the prologue, they are 11, and then they grow up, and after some time passes, they are able to reunite. So I'm gonna start with the prologue. Heroes don't wear crooked capes. Cecilia Blue Walker straightened the knotted ends of the pillowcase in front of Thomas's throat. She fluffed the rest of the fabric, pretending not to see the babyish pattern. When she was older, her movies would be so amazing, they'd probably have a Lord of the Rings-sized costume budget. But at 11 years old, she needed to make do with the stuff her mom wouldn't notice was missing. She scrunched her nose. If her parents could afford that ritzy-ditzy private school in Los Angeles and a summer home on Montana's Madison River, they could definitely afford more than this. Why am I wearing a cape again? I thought this was a prince and princess story. Thomas Beck tugged at the collar. Weird. He never fought her. At least not for long. It was always, yes, Blue, or you got it, Blue, with the occasional, only if you promise not to tell, Blue. Yep, he was the best kind of friend, even if he was a boy. She sighed. You can't possibly expect me to rewrite the same old story that's been told 1.5 million times, do you? Guess not. Okay, so in this scene, the superhero slayed... Shh. Thomas pressed his finger to his lips. Blue glanced over her shoulder to where Cassie, Thomas's 7-year-old sister, slept on the barn floor with her fingers clutching the pink sleeping bag close to her mouth. Sorry, she said, lowering her voice. You already slayed the magician's dragon. Now it's time to save the princess. How am I going to do that? I thought she got turned into a frog. She did. Now, where's Fergie? Over here. Thomas grabbed the food storage container spotted with air holes and sat with it on his lap. Inside, the frog tried to climb up the sides. What are we going to do with her? Change her back into a princess with true love's kiss. What? Thomas lunged back, nearly dropping the container. His penny-colored eyes almost fell out of his head, and Blue pinched her lips to keep from laughing. This wasn't the time for silliness, not when she'd been planning this moment all summer long. A sleeping bag rustled on the far side of the barn where Cassie slept. Thomas leaned forward and seethed through clenched teeth. I'm not kissing any stinking frogs. But you have to, it's in the script. She held up her black and white composition notebook, its pages warped from a summer of writing by waterfalls and rivers. No way, I'll get rabies. When he shook his head, long strands of dark hair whipped around his face. I thought you were brave. I am brave, just not dumb. And hasn't that been done before anyway? What happened to not writing the same old story? You're right, it's stupid. Blue felt a lump rise in her throat. I'll have to rewrite it. But we return to California on Friday. We won't have time to act it out. It'll have to wait until next summer. She tossed the composition book on the pile of empty juice boxes as tears burned the back of her eyelids. Why do I have to go back there every school year anyway? Thomas mashed his lips into a pencil straight line. He closed his eyes, and his thick, dark lashes fanned his sunburned cheeks. Mom said God wasted those gorgeous lashes on a boy. Mom was weird sometimes. But Thomas was pretty, in a way, like her favorite actor, Heath Ledger, back when his hair was dark. Sometimes Blue liked to look at Thomas when he wasn't paying attention, then her tummy got all twisty and her palms would sweat. He opened his eyes and smiled a bit. It's not stupid. One day you're going to win tons of awards for the movies you write. He gulped. I'll do it for you. I mean, for the story. You don't have to. I know, I want to. She twisted the light until it circled him, then pretended to press record on her grandfather's old broken video camera. He reached over to where she'd thrown her notebook, then settled back into the spotlight. He rummaged through the pages, eventually finding the scene. And now, Princess Katrina, I shall save you with my... Thomas rolled his eyes. Just say it. With my velvety lips. Okay, not her best line. Carefully, she lifted the frog with both hands. Now, close your eyes, and I'll touch the frog to your lips real quick, but keep your eyes closed. Will that make it less nasty? Blue shrugged. The script says hero closes his eyes. See? Fine. Ugh, I can't believe my first kiss is gonna be with an amphibian. You owe me a popsicle, you know. He squeezed his eyes closed and puckered his face. Blue held Fergie out. Then, taking a deep breath, she lowered the frog, leaned forward, and pecked Thomas's lips with her own. He jerked backwards, bumping his head on the stall wall. He spat on the floor a bunch of times and used his shirt to wipe off his mouth. That was the grossest of gross things ever! After a quick turn away, Blue put Fergie back in her tote and latched the lid. What scene's next? I don't want to think about that one anymore. She yanked the elastic out of her hair, letting the long blonde strands shield her flaming cheeks. Tears would cool them, but she trapped them inside. Thomas nudged her foot with his. Hey, Blue, you okay? If I didn't do it right, I guess I can do it again. I don't want to mess up your story. No, you did good. That's a wrap for tonight. It's super late, and Mom and Dad will want me home. When she stood, he followed, like he always did. If only she could take him with her to California. That would make 6th grade way easier. No more taunts on the playground. Thomas was the gentle kind, but if it came down to it, he'd stand up for her against those bullies in school. She couldn't help it that she came from Hollywood royalty. Thomas bent down to Cassie. Hey, Cass, it's bedtime. Let's go inside. His prod did nothing except make her snore louder than the Madison River across the highway. Blue opened the top half of the barn door, and the opening framed Thomas's house. It looked like a movie scene with the blue-black sky rising above the mountains in the Madison River Canyon. With just 3 bedrooms, it was a small house, especially compared to Blue's, but it was also dirty and packed full of his parents' things. One of the reasons they spent so much time in the barn, down by the creek, or in her basement. Ugly words sliced through the late summer air. Dad said Mr. and Mrs. Beck should at least close their windows when they got going. Blue prayed their fights would leave the house for good if they left the windows open. So far, that prayer was a bust. Thomas joined her at the door, propping his arms on the still closed bottom half. Do you think they'll ever stop fighting? She asked. He shrugged his skinny shoulders. Why does anyone want to get married anyway? He didn't talk much, but that was okay. At the cafe down the road, Mr. Matthews said Blue talked enough for both of them. They were a team, after all. We better sleep out here again. Thomas grabbed the red sleeping bag off the shelf and unrolled it. Then he placed it next to his sister. See you tomorrow? Sure. Maybe my mom will take us to the cafe for breakfast. Robbie and Ryan can help me with the next scene. Ryan would make a great princess, don't you think? Thomas gave a small nod. He totally had a crush on Robbie's older sister, Ryan. Meanwhile, he didn't even know Blue was a girl. A crash sounded from inside the house, broken glass, then more yelling. No wonder he didn't want to get married. As for her, she couldn't wait to get hitched. What could be better than having someone to sit next to on a porch swing, someone to dance with in the kitchen after dinner, or someone to kiss the way the movie stars do? Too bad she'd have to find someone other than Thomas to marry. No one on earth was as perfect as him. As Thomas settled onto the ground, his little sister cuddled up to him. He put his arm around her. Good night, Blue. Good night. Blue hiked herself over the door, shutting the upper half, although she was way more concerned with keeping the fighting out than any of the Montana wildlife. Her home, with its 3 stories and big windows, looked like a castle compared to Thomas's. Because it butted right up to the mountains, the front yard was really a big hill. Blue and Thomas loved to race up it. She was still faster, but sometimes she let him win. In the front window, her mother's shadow blocked the light from the living room. Blue went in through the garage door. A quick turn would take her into the basement, where earlier she and Thomas had built the best blanket fort in the West. Instead, she climbed up the back stairs that led to the main floor. When she heard her parents talking, she ducked into the mudroom, keeping an ear perked out into the hall. Poor Thomas and Cassie, her mother said. Such sweet children, they deserve a better home life. Sometimes Blue felt guilty. She'd hit the jackpot with her parents. Not only did they love Blue like crazy, but they also still loved each other, 20 years after meeting on the set of a movie musical. Her father was a screenwriter, and her mother was a choreographer and voice coach. No wonder her mother's voice was like whipped cream compared to Mrs. Beck's Tabasco sauce. Linda, come sit with me. Touched by an Angel is on. How can I ignore it? It's breaking my heart. Should we call Child and Family Services? And what if we did, and they acted? Blue would never forgive us if they took Thomas away. Blue bumped the broom and it clattered on the floor. Blue? Her father called. Hey, Dad. She followed the short hall into the kitchen. Her nose picked up the buttery sweet scent of her mother's chocolate chip cookies. She sniffed it out beyond the kitchen aisle into the plate of baked deliciousness on the mahogany dining table with 2 more chairs than their 3-person family needed. Come here, girl. I haven't seen you all day. Her father rose from the couch a few yards away, stretching out his arms to her. She hurried to him, accepting his hug. It was almost enough to soothe the sting of her embarrassing blunder. If she wanted, she could talk to them about the frog kiss catastrophe, but then Dad would put an end to their sleepovers for sure. She'd have to just bury that one down deep. She pushed away in time to catch her mother drawing the curtains across the windows. On both sides of the front door, windows stretched wall to wall, overlooking the canyon and the river, her favorite sight in the whole world. Apart from Thomas, of course. Do you want a chocolate chip cookie for dessert? Her mother asked, the worry lifting one of her brows skyward. I think I'll take a couple to my room. I'm tired. You sure? We can turn on a movie, her dad said. No thanks. Blue grabbed 3 cookies and wrapped them in a paper towel. Once in her room, she pulled a sweatshirt on and yanked her sleeping bag out from under her bed. She turned off her light, then opened her window and tossed the bag out. Careful not to crush the soft cookies that warmed her hand, she climbed through the frame. With all her supplies bundled in her arms, she stepped across the roof of the back porch to the corner where the mountain's rocky face was closest. It was a jump, but she'd done it enough that she didn't even need her hands to land safely. She pushed off and thudded. Her feet slid on the mountain ledge, making her heart freak out. Just a second, though. No one would call her a coward. She kicked the loose gravel out of the way for next time. It must have fallen when they had that little earthquake last week. Who'd have thunk she'd have to deal with earthquakes in California and Montana? Thomas said they were due for another big one, just like the one in 1959, and Thomas was the smartest kid she knew. But she wasn't scared. Thomas wasn't the gutsiest boy, but he'd save Blue if he had to, just like she'd save him. They were best buds after all. Careful not to make any noise, she crossed the back side of the house, scaling down the mountain. Once she cut in front of the garage, she froze. A towering, dark figure blocked her path, and Blue readied her right foot for a soccer kick. Your mom thought they'd like some milk, too. Dad. He held something out to her, a small thermos. While her pulse returned to normal, she tucked the thermos into the big pocket of her sweatshirt. When he handed her a walkie-talkie, she shoved that in as well. Make sure you latch the doors and call me if you hear an animal. Gotcha. Love you, Blue. Love you too, Dad. Blue followed her driveway toward the river. When she hit the break in the fence, the side door of Thomas's house swung open. She crouched behind the fence post as Mr. Beck stomped to his car. Mrs. Beck ran after him. Don't leave! Her cry twisted Blue's heart into a knot. Mr. Beck pushed her away before climbing in the car. Mrs. Beck rebounded quickly, pounding her fists on the windshield and screeching every expletive Blue had ever heard, as well as some new ones. Blue padded as quickly as possible to the barn, then waited for the car's ignition to cover the sound of the door's bottom half opening. She snuck inside and closed it behind her. The electric lantern gave off just enough light to show Thomas pushing himself up on his elbow. The air in the barn had already cooled, and he'd given his sleeping bag to Cassie. Blue frowned. He'll come back, Thomas said. He always does. I brought you a cookie and milk, and I can unzip my sleeping bag so we can both use it. He sat up and held the bundle of cookies while she spread her in-sync sleeping bag across their legs. Then together, they silently ate the cookies, taking turns sipping from the thermos. Hey, Thomas? Yeah? Promise me we'll always be friends, even if bad stuff happens, or if we're apart. Thomas swallowed his last bite of cookie, then chugged more milk. His eyes looked all around the barn, finally landing on the makeshift stage. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "If you promise not to tell anyone about me kissing the frog." Blue's tummy swirled again. "I promise." She held up her hand. "Together always?" He linked his pinky with hers. "Always." So, the story picks up about, 18 years later, I think. And life has not been so kind to Blue and Thomas. I'll read just the back cover copy so that you can see what the book will be about. Screenwriter Cecilia Blue Walker is a victim to life's worst plot twist. Having lost her daughter to the depths of the Madison River and her husband to the arms of another woman, she finds herself yearning for something to restore her brittle faith and once vibrant career. Hope arrives in the form of her childhood friend, Thomas Beck, a firefighter with a legacy of larger-than-life rescues who doesn't see himself as a hero. Haunted by his past, Thomas only agrees to a movie adaptation of his story because Blue, his longtime crush, will be the screenwriter. However, as Blue and Thomas work together to bring his heroism to the big screen, the glitz and glamour of Hollywood threaten to shed light on secrets that could tear their fragile relationship and their lives apart. So that is the beginning of Glory Falls. If you want to read more, I believe Amazon has the first chapter as a sample, so you could always see what happens in the immediate pages following the prologue. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I know that was a little long, but hopefully some of you guys stuck with me. Again, Glory Falls comes out in stores and it's already available at all the online retailers. And it will arrive at your house on Tuesday, January 12th. And I thank you guys so much for supporting me. I love you all and have a great day.